Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ and welcome to your detailed forecast update for December 4, 2024. We've got a lot to crack through today, including some heavy falls expected to continue across far northern Queensland over the coming couple of days. A bit of a severe thunderstorm outbreak also possible later this weekend across southeastern Queensland. Storms and showers expected across New South Wales and Victoria. Heavy rainfall possible across the Northern Territory and WA. And then two separate tropical lows, one offshore from Western Australia and then one offshore from the Northern Territory and Queensland. So we're going to talk about all of this plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing, but let's get stuck straight into things today, up into the far north of Queensland. Again, the rainfall just continues to pile on up there, and I've been reading the comments, and there are a lot of very, very happy people with the rainfall up there. The Atherton tablelands have had some good falls as well, averaging between 50 and 75 millimetres over the past 3 days. Some places have actually picked up into the triple figures over the past 3 days, and in fact, we've had reports of areas closer down towards Ravenshoe that have also had accumulations over the past 3 days in excess of 200 millimetres. So again, some great rainfall there and very welcome indeed. And you can still see some light to moderate stuff streaming in ashore here across the far northern areas of Queensland between Cairns and Townsville, and that means that the rainfall is going to continue to pile on over the coming couple of hours. The rainfall has been heavy at times as well, especially up into the Daintree rainforest, where areas outside of Mosman have picked up over 175 millimetres over in the past 24 hours. Accumulations on the Cassowary coast have been averaging around 120 millimetres, about the low hundreds as what expected, and then throughout the course of today as well, we're expecting this rainfall to continue to pile on. So for today's forecast to the 9 a.m. tomorrow, again, we're going to be seeing plenty of rainfall accumulations in excess of 100 millimetres across the far northern Queensland coastline. I would be surprised if we didn't see accumulations up to 150 millimetres, especially around Innisfail and Tully, and then down towards Cardwell and Ingham as well. They're basically expecting steady rainfall over the next kind of 6 to 12 hours in that kind of time frame. Later on this afternoon, the rainfall just going to continue to pile on there. Cairns, I'd say somewhere around the 30 to 40 millimetre mark up towards the Daintree rainforest around Mosman and the Daintree village. I'd be expecting somewhere around sort of the 50 to 60 millimetre mark there. Further inland, the rainfall is going to be much more hit and miss. Laura and Mount Carbine, the rainfall could be anywhere between nothing up towards about 30 millimetres. Chillago and then down towards some of the more inland locations around the Atherton tablelands as well, expecting accumulations between about 10 and 30 millimetres. From thunderstorms tonight, they could be slightly heavier than that, and even along the Atherton tablelands as well, they might get a couple of those residual showers moving ashore, and again, a few more drops of rainfall expected there. So it'll be interesting to see how much rainfall actually plays out over the next 24 hours. It looks like it's going to be pretty steady, light to moderate stuff across the Cassowary coast over the next 24 hours before it turns into patchy light showers for tomorrow morning and into tomorrow afternoon before the rainfall finally eases off temporarily, all things considered, by around Thursday afternoon. The showers just continuing to pile on through the remainder of the working week. This weekend, it looks like they might begin to ease off for good, but still a couple of showers and storms expected on Sunday, and then by Sunday and Monday next week, it looks like it is a little bit drier up there before, and this will lead us on to the next part of the video where another wet period comes up for the far north of Queensland. So all things considered, plenty of rainfall to go around up in Queensland's far north. Heaps of the stuff expected over the next 3 days, and it isn't really reciprocated amongst this forecast here, but for the remainder of the working week, for fun's sake, the Eastern Bay expecting up towards 100 millimetres. Just having a look at what rainfall has already fallen and how off some of the forecast models have been, I would be willing to triple some of the numbers on this map here and still call it a valid forecast. I'd be surprised if areas around Innisfail and Tully out towards Babinda or Tongue didn't pick up 300 millimetres over the next 3 days on top of the rainfall that they have already received. So again, up in far northern Queensland, there has been plenty of rainfall to go around. And then up into the true far north as well, there's been plenty of rainfall as well over the past couple of days, with even more to come through today from showers and thunderstorms. More rainfall also expected tomorrow from convective thunderstorms. So again, all across the Cape York Peninsula, it's looking really healthy indeed, all of this rainfall, which again is just fantastic to see, and I imagine is making a lot of people very, very happy right now. And like I said, the rainfall refusing to pipe down till about Sunday, so the rainfall is going to continue to pile on for those locations. Now we will get to the next rainfall event across the far north of Queensland in just a second, but first I'd like to dive a little bit further south and take a look at the southeast of Queensland. Certainly some interesting stuff also expected over the coming couple of days, not so much immediately. There will be a couple of thunderstorms over the scenic rim and then inland towards Toowoomba, Kingaroy, Dalby, and then much further inland out towards St George and Wyandra. Throughout the course of today, we're also expecting a few severe thunderstorms into the northeastern corner of New South Wales later on this afternoon, neighbouring Grafton and Lismore up towards Wallingarra, and like I said, extending up towards Warwick on the Queensland side of things. These thunderstorms not likely to be too powerful, definitely not extending into anywhere significantly populated. It looks like Toowoomba, Brisbane, the Gold Coast, and even Lismore and Grafton kind of dodged the worst of it, at least on this forecast forecast model here. Again, things can change and they might get a gnarly thunderstorm or two, but in terms of severe thunderstorms, they only look like they're going to go severe warning for damaging winds and heavy rainfall. Doesn't really look like a hail day today, especially considering the lack of instability in the air across the northeast of New South Wales. I mean, yeah, these thunderstorms are firing up and they do look rather nasty on the forecast, but if you're talking about Cape values of around 500, keep in mind this is about a sixth of what they normally are for a severe thunderstorm day. There's just not going to be that much instability in the atmosphere, and as such, these thunderstorms here are likely to be disappointing for thunderstorm lovers. A couple of showers expected tomorrow morning around the Brisbane area and extending into the Gold Coast. A few thunderstorms expected to fire up over the Blue Mountains inland towards Toowoomba and Warwick, and then across towards Goondiwindi, Moree and Lightning Ridge as well. Even St George could get a couple of showers and thunderstorms later on tomorrow afternoon. Friday looking to be a little bit quieter, at least for Queensland. New South Wales might still get a couple of storms. We'll get to that in just a hot second. A couple of thunderstorms as well expected Saturday night, extending in towards the southern parts of Queensland as well, up towards St George. A few good storms expected there. Sunday is a day that I did want to take a look at. We are expecting a nice patch of severe thunderstorms to develop offshore from, not offshore, just onshore in the northeast of New South Wales, and some of these could dive up into the southern parts of Queensland late Sunday night, bringing the Gold Coast some much needed rainfall as well, and then across into the scenic rim. A couple of severe thunderstorms with heavy rainfall also do look possible. In terms of instability in the atmosphere, again, it's not looking too flash, but further inland, if we do see a couple of thunderstorms firing up through here, they will go quite gnarly indeed, just with the amount of instability in the atmosphere. So it's not so much these thunderstorms that I'm concerned about, it's the fact that we're seeing thunderstorms through here firing up into the inland parts of Queensland. The forecast models really haven't latched onto those thunderstorms. I mean, looking at humidity values here, even in the mid-levels, they're looking really healthy for later Sunday night. Temperature values as well looking pretty healthy as well for later Sunday afternoon, and even into the mid-levels as well. We've got plenty of wind shear, and mid-level humidity values again looking very healthy for thunderstorms. So I'm probably confusing quite a few people here, but just to cut it short and sweet, the thunderstorms forecast here do not match the forecast conditions. These thunderstorms here are very, very weak compared to the forecast. That's a very good setup for thunderstorms that we just talked about with the humidity, the mid-level humidity, the Cape values, and the temperatures. That is a Rolls-Royce setup for thunderstorms. So these ones here, these little poxy thunderstorms that are firing up on the forecast here, and you can see, again, they're reciprocated between the forecast models, but none of those forecast models are really latching onto those thunderstorms. It begs the question of what's actually going to happen on Sunday afternoon into the central parts of Queensland, because I do expect a gnarly thunderstorm outbreak if those conditions do uphold themselves. We'll revisit in another forecast update, but again, some interesting stuff, that's for sure. We will have a little look at that in a future forecast update. A couple of storms expected also Monday up into the Sunshine Coast and into the south central parts of Queensland around Rockhampton and Agnes Water. And then Wednesday, it looks like a bit of a rainfall event takes hold, and this is something that I also wanted to talk about here. I take this one with a very heavy pinch of salt, considering other forecast models not really calling for it, but a couple of showers tending to rainfall at times expected into the south central parts of Queensland on Wednesday, and then beyond Wednesday, the forecast becomes pretty unreliable in the sense that we're now talking about tropical weather, and it's very hard to predict tropical weather over a week out in advance, but still looks like into the middle parts of December, a nice round of severe thunderstorms could fire up across inland parts of Queensland. And taking a look at this here, and considering the fact that it is reciprocated amongst the forecast models, except for in a completely different part of the nation, it certainly will be something to take a look at in a future forecast update, and certainly something to get a little bit excited for. It's looking pretty hot as well into the western half of Queensland. Need I say much more with that heat? And also in the talk of thunderstorms, we'll talk about New South Wales and Victoria. They do have a nice outbreak expected throughout the course of this weekend. So Friday, we're going to be seeing from a low pressure system sitting across central parts of Australia, plenty of thunderstorms Friday night extending from Western Australia right through South Australia. They're going to be pretty hit and miss in South Australia, but there's going to be lots of them to go around, extending into towards parts of the Northern Territory as well. And then late Friday night, we're expecting a nice line of thunderstorms across the western half of New South Wales around Broken Hill, extending out towards Cobar and Ivanhoe. A couple of thunderstorms expected there. They'll move up towards White Cliffs and Wilcannia later on in the afternoon and evening. A couple of showers and storms also possible in Victoria as well, rather. And then Saturday, it looks like we get a weak low pressure front sweep up from the south. That means that we're going to have a nice cool change as well to go with things on Saturday afternoon, because it is going to be a scorcher across parts of Victoria and also into New South Wales on both Friday and Saturday as well, depending on when the cool change does hit you. And then, like I said in yesterday's forecast update, some really gnarly thunderstorms thunderstorms expected Saturday afternoon. Lots of rainfall also expected through here, and this is an interesting thing to have on the forecast here. I mean, you can see it's not reciprocated whatsoever between the other forecast models. The ECMWF and the Axis G3 really confident in this weather event here, but the GFS forecast model, normally the most reliable, calling for absolutely squat. So taking a look at this forecast here and seeing what conditions are actually driving this severe thunderstorm outbreak that's expected to be around the Wagga Wagga area on Saturday afternoon, then right through New South Wales for the most part throughout Saturday afternoon as well. Plenty of instability in the atmosphere. The convective available potential energy values are going to be very high indeed. Lots of humidity as well, especially as you get yourself up against the Blue Mountains. There's going to be plenty of humidity there. Those thunderstorms are going to have a field day in it and likely to become high precipitation squall modes very quickly. Temperatures as well going to be very warm. You can see along the dry line, temperatures expected to be up towards 37 or 38 degrees Celsius there. So all that means a perfect setup for thunderstorms on Saturday afternoon, and as such we're expecting a gnarly outbreak around the Wagga Wagga, Young, West Wyalong and Parkes area, basically in that triangle or square, not a triangle. We are expecting a gnarly outbreak of some thunderstorms. So just a heads up here, it isn't exactly set in stone yet, but it is now drawing closer and closer towards Saturday. Certainly I'd be surprised if we didn't see severe thunderstorms across this area of New South Wales on Saturday. It's just going to be a case now of how severe they are going to be. And I mean, just in terms of the rainfall, some huge accumulations are possible if these high precipitation storm modes really do materialize. And you're talking about accumulations averaging about 70 millimeters an hour, and then peak accumulations to the 9am on Sunday looking to be around 100 to 120 millimeters. So certainly some good rainfall is expected when these storms do properly materialize. And yeah, just perfect conditions for them as all of this moisture gets jammed up against the mountains and has no choice but to evaporate into some gnarly thunderstorms. Those thunderstorms continuing through Saturday and into early Sunday morning before they sweep up into the northeast of New South Wales. Any questions or comments about this, then please do leave them in the comment section down below. I know we're talking so much about thunderstorms, so now we're going to switch things up a little bit and just briefly give a southwest and Western Australia weather forecast. We do have a little bit of heat on the way, and when I say a little bit, we've actually got quite a lot. So let's flip it over to the temperatures and just take a look at what is expected. Again, it's hot all around Australia at this time of the year, but Perth expecting now its first 40-degree day sometime next week. It's going to go up to a nice top of 34 degrees on Tuesday. That's quite pleasant indeed, and then Wednesday really does start to boil a little bit up towards 36 in Perth, but further up the coastline, Gin 36, Moora 37, then Morawa 39. But take a look at this, where the low pressure system is expected to be situated, and this is a completely valid forecast outside of Kalbarri and Northampton. Temperatures expected to skyrocket to not 42 or 43 like a really hot day across Western Australia, but 47 degrees Celsius. Again, a completely valid forecast, and unfortunately for the poor buggers that live up here, I mean, there's not too many of them, but they are going to be burnt to a crisp with those temperatures. That is very, very warm indeed, all powered by the next part of the video, the tropical cyclone offshore from Western Australia. Thursday will be a little bit cooler, but still up into the high 30s across Perth, 39, 40 into the northern suburbs, and then 40 to 41 across the northern parts of the Wheatbelt, before finally this west coast trough sweeps a little bit further inland. Still though, high 30s to early 40s expected across much of the Wheatbelt. Bit of a cool change coming through on Saturday though, and you can see that sea breeze really helping things milden off a little bit across the southern parts of WA. Still though, it's going to be into the mid 30s for the remainder of the working week and then right through the weekend. So it's going to be a hot run, that's for sure. Even Monday next week as well, with another low pressure system developing, it's going to be into the high 30s once again. As this tropical low develops, and as you know probably from just how the kind of stuff works around the southwest of Western Australia, when you get those tropical lows offshore, the temperatures do tend to skyrocket across the southwest. And I know I should be paying more attention to the temperatures around other major Australian cities, but right now the temperatures have actually been pretty steady and pretty average across much of especially the eastern coast. Melbourne and Sydney, yeah, they've had a couple of hot days. Brisbane as well has had a couple of hot days, but again, we haven't had anything stand out, so I'm not deliberately neglecting them. If I was to cover every single aspect of the Australian weather forecast in one of these videos, they would go for well over an hour, especially this time of the year. But we'll keep it short and sweet. We're now going to head up across the northern parts of WA. We do have a tropical low expected to become the next tropical cyclone as well. So just a week after Tropical Cyclone Robin formed across the Cocos-Keeling Islands, we're expecting our next tropical cyclone. Now this is a very interesting forecast, and it could go one of two ways. One way, we could have a very weak, messy tropical cyclone that tracks close to the West Australian coastline, and the other way is we get a monster category 3, 4 or 5 tracking far away from the West Australian coastline. So it's kind of a bit of a debate of if you want to see a strong system move well away from Western Australia, or if you want to see a bit of a rainmaker bring some much needed rainfall to the Pilbara and the Gascoyne. That's kind of a double-edged sword at this time. Now the system forms on around sort of Monday or Tuesday next week here offshore from the Kimberley region of Western Australia. It develops as a tropical low for a couple of days, stews for a little bit, and then it looks like it gets to fully fledged tropical cyclone status sometime around Wednesday lunchtime, and again reciprocated between the other forecast models more or less. The GFS calling for it to develop about a day or two earlier. The Axis G3 also calling for it to develop about a day or two earlier, but the East Mid forecast here looks to be the most reliable at this time. Again, we will revisit this in a future forecast update. You can see it forms as a big, broad, messy system and really does refuse to tighten itself down, unlike what the other forecast models are suggesting. So it'll be interesting to see what actually happens there. Before heading quite close to the WA coastline, bring some showers and storms across the Pilbara and also into the Gascoyne region, making its closest approach to Exmouth at around lunchtime on Friday, before steadily weakening off through late Friday and into Saturday and Sunday, and then becoming a remnant low by around Sunday lunchtime, and then moving, I guess, higgledy-piggledy across to the Gascoyne coastline. Again, it really doesn't make sense, but no impacts really expected from this system either way. Now, the reason why this system does remain very weak, even for this time of the year, is because those sea surface temperatures, they're just not there yet. They haven't stewed for long enough offshore from Western Australia. Where the system's going to develop, it's going to be around 30 to 31 degrees, and that's actually hot enough to cause the system trouble in developing. It's going to be firing up so many thunderstorms around its center that it's really going to struggle to spin itself up in dramatic fashion. However, if it does get itself together really quickly, or it does get together as a small system, which at this time, considering the sea temperatures and the current forecast, it doesn't look overly likely, it will go boom with these sort of sea surface temperatures. However, further south down towards the WA coastline, they're sitting at around 26 or 27 degrees, still warm, but dipping around that 26 degrees Celsius mark. It's just not enough for a tropical cyclone, so it will struggle around that area, and hence why it remains a weak system, even though it is close to the WA coastline. Now, the second option that this system could take is it becomes a monster system, and it looks like that is also a likely chance this time. You can see the GFS forecast model here bringing it well away from the WA coastline, and as such rapidly intensifying it through Tuesday and Wednesday. And get this, it's also a really small system as well. Now, this system would bring no impacts to the WA coastline whatsoever. It does remain far enough offshore to be not a concern at all, but we'd be talking about at least a Category 3, maybe even a Category 4 strength severe tropical cyclone at this time, which would be great to see offshore from Western Australia. Certainly we'll get a few people interested, that's for sure as well, with peak winds likely up towards 200 kilometers an hour. Again, that's because, like I said, those sea surface temperatures are very, very warm offshore from Western Australia. Once you get far enough offshore, up towards 27, 28, even 29 degrees Celsius, they do need to warm up just a little bit more to be perfect for a powerful tropical cyclone, but at this time it looks like it's going to be good enough for a strong small system offshore from Western Australia. What this system does, we still don't know exactly at this time, but we will wait and see and have a look at what happens. In terms of impacts across Western Australia, though, at this time it just looks like a couple of showers and enhanced thunderstorm activity here and there. You can see some good rainfall expected, but it's going to be spread over a couple of days here, so nothing expected in terms of major flooding or whatnot. It's just going to be a bit of a stock standard rain-making event, tropical low for the northern parts of Western Australia. Not what the system in the Gulf of Carpentaria is looking to be either. You can have a look up here, take a look at this on the forecast here. Tropical low slowly developing across Arnhem Land around the 16th or the 17th of December, and we did have this a few forecasts ago. It's since been pushed back a little bit more, but it looks like we might see a weak tropical low, or maybe even a weak tropical cyclone develop somewhere in the Gulf of Carpentaria into the later parts, into the late middle parts of December. And you can see it here reciprocated perfectly between the other forecast models, the Eastern Mid and the GFS calling for basically the exact same forecast at this time. And you can see here it's definitely going to be a rainmaker, that's for sure. I mean, if we just take a look at accumulations from the later part of December onwards, so from Sunday right through Monday, Tuesday, and then into Wednesday, not even 4 days, accumulations will be well in excess of 300 millimeters wherever this system does begin to track. And again, trying to get a full picture on this forecast here is quite difficult. The GFS forecast here would likely call for much more rainfall, especially considering it's likely to track closer to the Queensland area. But one thing's going to stay the same. If it drags rainfall across the eastern coast of the Cape York Peninsula, you're going to see some massive accumulations here and there, especially along the Daintree rainforest area and around Cairns. If that rainfall does materialize there, it's going to really rack up quite quickly. And you're looking at accumulations already on the forecast up towards 220 millimeters just over that 3-day period. So again, some very heavy falls do look possible here if this tropical low does materialize how the forecast is suggesting. The Gulf of Carpentaria and brings a rain band over the northern parts of the Cape York Peninsula. You bet there's going to be some significant rainfall there. It is still far too early to tell what exactly this system is going to wind up being, whether it becomes a tropical cyclone or just a rainmaker, tropical low sort of thing. We're not 100% sure yet, but I'll have future information on this system in a future forecast update. And if that interests you, then make sure you are subscribed and also leave a like on the video while you're at it. This video has gone for long enough. It might be my longest video in about 5 or 6 months as well, so thank you so much for putting up with it to this point. And if you haven't already, then please do consider subscribing. Also, if you've left your head scrambled or spinning from any of these forecasts as well, who've really raced through today, please do let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll give you a bit of a wrap up on what actually we've talked about here. And if you've got any specific questions as well, then please do leave them in the comment section down below. A special shout out to the channel sponsors. The names are on screen right now. Again, I could not run this show without them, but that is all from me today, and I will catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.